Okay, well, I'm Jason from Dorset Eye. Here we are at the Weymouth Fringe, and I'm talking to Attila The Stockbroker, all the way from Brighton.
Hello.
Hi, Attila.
Yeah, cool. It's nice to be here, and well done for putting this on. I mean, it's a good sort of initiative. It's the sort of place that needs stuff like this, and you run a good magazine as well, so well done.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we're doing it alongside a Firebox, who are a local group that's organised themselves over the last 4 or 5 months, and the idea there is to empower and unify people and give people the skills and the knowledge to sort of help themselves as well. So, you know, hopefully we can turn Weymouth and Dorset into not so much of a conservative backwater, but more of a sort of a radical and a space really for people just to come forward and be able to empower themselves. But anyway, let's hand over to Attila, and he's going to tell us a little bit about, you know, what he does and why he's here tonight and everything else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a performance poet and musician. I've been doing it for 33 years. This is my poetic licence. Yo, I'm the MC of Ranting Rebel Poetry, and I'm a history and my identity. I'm independent, a red cottage industry, DIY, from here to eternity. Let me tell you what's been going on. I take inspiration from centuries long gone, oral tradition of sedition. That's my position. No court jester with a tame disposition. Poetic licence? 33 years I've had one. And they don't come easy. They're not handed out for fun. You have to earn it, work and sweat and move, not get stuck in a dead poet bore groove. I earn mine in dirty, scummy punk clubs, art centres, rock gigs, festivals and dodgy pubs, and yes, once or twice I've had to fight. But when a fascist hits a poet, the poet's doing something right. So listen up, this MC's here to stay. Wild all those years ago and still fired up today. I love words, and I got this message for you. Poetry's not boring, though some poets bore you. And I have to say that some poets bore me. They're about as fun as a week on the lavatory, dull and pretentious, playing the arts game. Real problem is to give the rest of us a bad name. But I'm in the forward line, down there in the scrum. Tedious whining poets, up your bum. Now some of the critics think my stuff's no good, but I earn my living at it. Those jerks never could. Yes, as you see, I'm a little bit bolshy too. But that's just one of the ways I want to get through. Sometimes it's cerebral, dry, esoteric wit. Sometimes it's loud and wild and hard and rude as shit. I love words, and I love them in the red and raw. I like to use them in ways they've not been used before. I want you to laugh, I want you to think as well. Bollocks to TV. This is live as hell. Oral tradition. The real origins of poetry. Attila The Stockbroker, Ranting Rebel MC, Dean of the Social Surrealist University. Welcome to my wild poetic journey.
Absolutely fabulous, Attila. Absolutely fabulous. I think no more introduction than that. Tell us a bit about Brighton. What's the Brighton scene currently like?
Well, I mean, I live in the middle of Shoreham Harbour. I've been doing quite a lot. I've got a lot of new poems. I've just been writing a lot recently. My new book, UK Gin Dependence Party and Other Peculiarities, is actually coming out in a couple of weeks. And it's the most personal and at the same time the most topical, the Velvet Underground are in the house, I can hear, the most topical sort of poetry book I've ever done as well, because it's lots and lots of very, very kind of topical stuff about what's happening in the world and the ridiculous way that everything my parents' generation thought has been destroyed and the country's been turned into a third world hellhole where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, and scumbags like Boris Johnson laugh, you know, in the face of the poor and oppressed, and, you know, basically invite civil war. But at the same time, my book is full of like very personal things, and there's a lot of stories about. There's quite a few stories about. Because I live in the middle of Shoreham Port. I don't actually live in Brighton. I live in the middle of the port of Shoreham. It's a bit like a tiny version of Poole Harbour, really. It's only more industrial. But the Brighton scene is good. I mean, there's an awful lot going on, you know, and there is an awful lot going on. I mean, how could I put this? I mean, I do about 100 gigs a year, and I'm from, you know, I'm from there. But I mean, I put on most of the stuff that I organise. I put on in Shoreham, and at my annual festival Glastonbury. We've got a lovely little art centre called the Rope Tackle, run by volunteers. I put on a lot of stuff there, and I run Glastonbury Beer, Music, Poetry and More Beer Festival with 80 plus different real ales and about 25 bands and poets. That's what you missed a trick tonight, by the way. I wasn't worried about it. Oh dear, this is awful. Oh dear me. Someone doesn't know what's happening to the sound here. If I had been intending to stay overnight, I would have been taking you to task for not having any real ale. because that is a kind of a prerequisite for any form of radical event. You know, it's like the urine of Satan, the corporate urine of Satan, as opposed to locally produced beer from small independent breweries. You know, but yeah, I mean, no, we got a good scene. But I do gigs. I gig all over, literally all over the world. I mean, I've done about 3,000 gigs in 24 countries in 33 years, and I'm no more part of Brighton than I am of London, Manchester, or indeed Auckland or whatever. I mean, I'm just around, but I do closely identify with my little bit of the Sussex coast, you know, where we do our own thing basically, and that is different. And Brighton is, to be blunt, Brighton is pretty trendy, studenty, you know, sort of scumbags that get parents to buy them cars when they come to university and then sit in the fucking excuse me, I probably can't say that, can I? Sit in the cycle lane outside the chippy and open their car door as I'm cycling past, which is why my leg is killing me at the moment. You know, those sort of people. I'm not terribly into that in a way. I mean, I like the scene, but there's an awful lot of people that kind of come there for 3 years and then go, and you know, and I mean, I've always been there and I always will be, you know. But yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot going on everywhere. I mean, I see this travelling around. I mean, obviously, you know, you're doing this here and it's fantastic. And I am, obviously, because of what I do, I get invited to perform all over the place. And so I see just how much is going on. But, of course, it's all completely underground. I mean, you know, the bourgeois media, it is against their economic and social interest. I mean, you know, people say, you know, where are the political poets? Where are the political songwriters? Where's it? Well, I've always said, well, I've been here for 33 years, but you know, it is not in the interests of the ruling class for people like me to get exposure on the national media, and so I don't. That isn't quite true. I do, but not when I'm talking about politics. I mean, the poem I wrote for my mum. When she was, well, she had Alzheimer's for 6 years and we looked after her. I think you've heard it. I got that on Radio 4 on Mother's Day. That was fantastic. So it's not, you know, it's like, and there are many people, you know, the BBC's accused of being left-wing, which is obviously bollocks, but there are many people within the BBC who are radical and want to get ideas through, but one of the things that the corporations are doing, as well as obviously completely screwing everything and screwing everything down and laughing at us in the economic sector, they're also very careful to control the means of production in terms of culture as well. I mean, that's why obviously the press is so ridiculously biased one way, and why we, you know, we have very little opportunity really in the mainstream sort of television or radio either. I mean, there's stuff that passes for radical, but I don't consider it to be most of it. I mean, I write for the Morning Star, which, you know, is a tiny little voice of opposition, but you know, it's really difficult, simply because of the way that everything's structured. You know, it's very, very difficult to get distributed. Obviously, you know, we've got a lot of stuff going online, and equally, to be fair, the Morning Star isn't as good a newspaper as it should be. It can be a bit dull, you know, it needs a bit more life, which is, I think, one of the reasons they got me to write for it, to be honest, trying to sort of stir things up a bit, you know.
Well, hopefully we might get to write for Dorset Eye.
Well, yeah, I mean, the point about for me at the moment is, I mean, I'm happy to say this, I am doing so much. I mean, you know, I really am. I have a huge, you know, I would say I write about what I see happening in the world and what happens to me personally, and I have the most fulfilling life imaginable, and yet I look around me and I see what's going on in the world, and it makes me, I mean, you know, I really enjoy my life, but I look at and I see what's happening in the world, and it makes me so angry, and it makes me empathise so much with the millions of people that I mean, I have them, you know, I earn my living doing what I love. I travel the world doing my poems and songs, you know, that's what I do, and to earn your living doing something you love is fantastic, and most people don't have that opportunity, and I never forget how privileged I am to do that. Okay, you know, I've done it all my own. I've had virtually no help from anyone, and I get virtually no media coverage or whatever, but I'm not moaning about that. I'm out there doing it. What I'm saying is I have that opportunity. Okay, I create it for myself with the help of people like you and all the people all over the world that put me on, but it's still a great thing to do, and I'm so much aware of the other people out there that don't have that, you know. I really am.
Well, we appreciate how lucky we are to have Attila here tonight, and I want to thank you very much for coming down from Brighton via Bournemouth, via Dorchester.
I mean, that's the other thing, obviously. I mean, you know, I'm very, very much involved in my local team, Brighton Hove Albion. I was the stadium announcer for 14 years, and one of the campaigners in the fight to save our club, which was stolen by probably speculating scum in the 1990s, and we fought. But I would always say one of the most successful, probably the most successful community campaign I've ever been involved in was the fight to save Brighton Hove Albion. And now we've got our new stadium and things are looking up. But, and as much as possible, I organise my gigs around the away fixtures, and you were kind enough to set this gig up for tonight after we played Bournemouth. But, of course, thanks to Murdoch, the match started at 12:15 in the afternoon, which meant I had 3 hours to kill afterwards. So I went to see Dorset Town against Eastbourne Borough, which is one of the most unbelievably inept 0-0 draws I've ever seen, actually. Well, then Dorchester are bottom of the table. But apparently Weymouth managed to lose 7-0 to Stourbridge today, so they're not doing very well either. Anyway, I can still remember Tony Agana playing for Weymouth many, many years ago. That was when he came back, though. I remember in 1988, when I was writing for the very short-lived good newspaper, the socialist newspaper, The News on Sunday, I saw the game where Scarborough got into the league and they were playing Weymouth, and Nagano was playing for Weymouth then, and they lost 2-0. Anyway, there you go. Anyway, it's nice to be here. There's a lot of history around here. I mean, obviously from the south coast too. I understand it. I understand around here. It's like a big version of where I'm from, really. I mean, as I say, there's Brighton, which is the trendy part, and there's the Port of Shoreham, which is where I live, which is where the sort of, well, in some ways you could say where the real people are. That's a ridiculous generalisation, but it's. I mean, I'll be doing some stuff about it today, so you'll hear.
Brilliant. Thanks, Attila. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.